Hey everyone, I'm so excited about today's episode, but first want to let you know that this show is made possible by Fortune Builders. I also want to take a minute to invite you guys to an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the top experts in the real estate industry about how to get started in real estate or scale an existing business to the next level. Fortune Builders is hosting a one-day webinar to help you learn about real estate investing in today's market. So throughout the show, if you feel like you're ready to get started, go to FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. Again, that's FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you'll find a link right below the show so you can get there that way as well. And please remember that the content of this show and every show is for educational purposes only. Myself or our guests are not going to be providing any legal, financial, or professional advice. If we share specific results, they are attributed to an individual or a business, and we can't guarantee the results will happen for you, those earnings or the income will match those figures. The bottom line is there's always risk when investing in real estate. You can make a lot of money or you can lose a lot of money, and it's hard work. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun doing it. So let's get into today's episode.
From a team that has $1 billion in real estate investment experience. A show to help you learn the strategies and systems it takes to get started investing in real estate. This is the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show. I am your host, Jeff Rakowski, and this is the first time for me. I'm actually coming to you from my home office, not from the bunker there at down in Bunker Hill at the Fortune Builders headquarters. I'm excited. Actually, a property I just finished renovating not too long ago, and we decided to keep it. We liked it so much. But I'm excited for today's episode. Because we have a guest on today's show, but we actually have a student of Fortune Builders who has been in the business for only 3 years and doing some amazing things. And I thought it would be great to bring her on because her story, I believe, is very inspiring and will show many of you that are still on the fence that you can do this business if you want to do it. So we'll get into that shortly, but we kick it off as always with the word of the week. And the word of the week this week is remote rehabbing. And you really could plug in anything as the second word: remote wholesaling, remote buying and hold, et cetera, and it's obvious what it means. You know, it's rehabbing another property in a different state than where you live. And we're going to talk about that on today's show because I meet so many people that they just feel that's so out of their league and not possible and all of these different things, and they see themselves as being limited to only investing in their own backyard. And when you really grasp the tools and some of the processes that we're going to talk about today, it just opens up the whole entire country to you as a potential investing ground. So it's going to be a great show. Let's get into it. All right, Ms. Jennifer Aspacio, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here. This is definitely not in the business plan for 2022, but it's a great honor. So thank you.
Oh, we're honored to have you. Jennifer wasn't Jennifer. I invited her to come on today's show yesterday. Actually, so I appreciate really you jumping in on short notice and all of that. And we actually had something else planned for this week, but I just saw one of the recent deals that you did successfully, and I'm like, oh man, that's better than what I was thinking. Let's see if we could get her on and talk about that. But yeah, Jennifer became a Fortune Builder student just about 3 years ago, and has done 4 rehabs since then. Really do with some impressive profits on there. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But one recently that she did was a remote rehab, and that's what I want to get into today. So we'll talk about that in a minute, Jennifer. But why don't you first just start off by giving people a context of what did life look like for you prior to real estate, and what made you make a decision 3 years ago to learn how to do it?
Sure. Well, I've been in life before real estate has been in healthcare industry. 20 years, almost to the year. I think I graduated college about 20 years ago. And so the first 13 years was or first 8 years was doing revenue cycle, which was billing for professional fee services for our providers and billing patients. And then the last 8 years have been probably the better part of my career, working with a team of just everything that has to do with implementing the electronic medical record. So that's really all I've been doing in healthcare for the last 8 years. And while it was great and all, I mean, I love our team and I love the complicated work it comes with. I'm in front of my computer a lot, and it's good and all. It provides for our family and whatnot, but it's definitely something that I wanted to. There something more in life that I wanted, and it was more just freedom and whatnot. So while I'm tied to my computer, that's really essentially what it is. A lot of project managing and whatnot in healthcare. So.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I appreciate you serving in that industry, especially over the past couple of years. It's had to be crazy for you because are you still full-time or part-time in the healthcare industry?
Yeah, I'm well more than full-time in the healthcare industry for sure. So, during the day, early in the morning, I'm working on the business of real estate. So between 6 and 9 o'clock, I'm working on real estate. And then from 9 o'clock until the, late evening hours, that's when I'm working on my corporate job so that we have health insurance for the time being, right? So that's how I manage my time as best as I can, so.
No, I love it. I love it. And that's another thing, we tell people all the time, like, if you could carve out about 10 to 15 hours a week, even around a full-time job, you can do that. You could still do this business. Now, it doesn't come without its challenges, right? Obviously, working 2 times. But how do you balance the two? I guess would be a good question.
Oh, it's a lot of time management for sure. Almost at every given half-hour point, I know exactly what hat I'm wearing for the day and what time. I know where I'll be if I have to do a site visit. I work around that where if it's going to has to be between 11 and 1, which are normal lunch hours for the corporate job, and I don't want to just skip out. I respect my company very much, so my corporate job very much. So want to make sure I respect the time that they are paying me to make sure that I'm there for them. And so it's really a lot about time management, making sure I know where I'm supposed to be. What are my major tasks that I have to get accomplished? If I have to make a phone call, I have a break at this time. This is the time I'm going to make that phone call for, my realtor or my general contractor. And then, it's just using the technology we have, right? Our calendars, those are big.
Sure.
I'm constantly setting alert on my calendar on my phone that just reminds me, hey, at 12 o'clock today, you are going to do a podcast. So 15 minutes beforehand, make sure you are ready to do this podcast. So that's essentially how. I can't remember everything anymore, so I have to depend on technology to give me my alerts. So.
No, that's so important. So what would you say to the person that says, I don't have enough time?
Well, not to be funny, but I mean, how many hours or minutes do we spend scrolling on our phones, looking at, social media and items that are fun and entertaining and great for our wellness and very necessary. But I do believe that there are hours in the day that you can, wake up earlier, do the learning modules, the core curriculum in the morning when there are no distractions. That's probably the most important thing. When there are no distractions, get the core curriculum out of the way, and then you'll feel a lot better and you'll feel a lot more equipped to be able to take the next steps in your business, whichever route you want to go. So.
I love it. I love it. Now, this is great. We obviously didn't plan on talking about that, but it just I didn't realize like you're doing this around the full-time job still, which is awesome. And obviously, we're advocates of putting yourself in a position to quit a job that you don't want to be in. But there's many people, even like myself, what I do for Fortune Builders, I love it. I love it. I feel passionate about it, and I structure my business and my life around that. So it's definitely possible for everybody wondering whether you could do it or not. But I love that you talked a little bit about sacrifice too. I remember, Paul, Than, and Conrad, they always share the story of when they got started in the business that they were big, Than especially a big football fan, and they just removed all televisions from their house, for like the first 3 years of the business, just to do whatever it takes. Back then they weren't dealing, with the social media scrolling,
Right.
like we have today. But I love that. So really, so sacrifice. And any other areas where you just made conscious decisions where I'm going to put aside this just so I can do this and put myself in a better position down the road?
I did. And so it's funny you mentioned football games. I usually join a fantasy football league or two during the season, and I actually cut that down so I'd have less distractions so that I wouldn't be more stressed trying to manage a team and just manage my actual business team, right? My real estate team. So, I cut down fantasy football. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was little things that we cut out, or I cut out, to make sure I had more time. I cut out another golf league too. So I used to play in 2 golf leagues, and then I cut it down to 1. So, it was those, and I know that it's like, it's not really a sacrifice, Jennifer. It's like, well, to me, my wellness and my well-being, happiness and well-being is important. So you had to find a balance, right? And so, I found that time. And then I cut out a lot of social media. If I'm not on the Fortune Builders Facebook group, that's probably the only group I'm looking at, and the Austin real estate group, right? And also the Chicagoland one. And so other than that, I really try to stay clear of the little distractions. It's not the big sacrifices. I will say, for those like, well, I have a family. I'm like, I have so many nieces and nephews, and I'm taking one of them to karate. I go to their baseball games. I go to their softball games, and that comes with sacrificing time with the business, but at the same time, that's still important, right? So people think you have to sacrifice so much, and I don't believe that. I actually think you just have to sacrifice small little changes, and they will make a big impact in your work-life balance and how you manage time better. So.
Oh man, I like you even more. I like you even more. You're speaking my language. I always say, just as you're talking, it reminds me of a quote from Jerry Rice that I always use, and it says, "Today I'm going to do what other people are not willing to do, so tomorrow I can do what other people can do." And that's exactly. So you're making some sacrifices now, but man, down the road, it's just you're gonna be able to live a life that a lot of other people can't. So really admire you for that. But I want to talk about this deal.
Sure.
I love remote investing. Me myself, I live here in San Diego. I own a primary residence here, but I don't do any investing here. It's all remote. It's all in other states. Either mostly wholesaling and buying and hold. Occasionally a rehab here and there, but so I love it just because there's opportunities in other places. So this, why don't we start just by giving an overview of the deal, like very high level, and then we'll kind of get into, how you found it and why Austin, Texas, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. This was a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Austin, Texas, in the heart of Austin, Texas. And it's only about 1,000 square feet. And the high level part of the deal is we purchased it for $120,000. I will say that originally we did agree to purchase it for $115,000.
Okay.
But the realtor we were working with forgot to make that adjustment on the contract. So the seller was like, "Hey, I'll give you a $5,000 check. Let's just continue on with this deal." So a lot of trust in the beginning already, but
okay.
So we rehabbed the property. The budget was for $75,000. We wound up having to pay $80,000 for rehab. And that's because of the city of Austin required us to do some more fireproofing for the property, which was, that's fine. $5,000 over budget is actually pretty good considering the way the market is, right? So I consider that a win. And when we first purchased the property, our ARV was $285,000. And working with a realtor and whatnot, when we decided to finally sell, we decided to list it at $325,000. And within 5 days of listing the property, we had 10 offers, and all of them over asking price, above the asking price of $325,000. So ultimately, we did wind up with a very healthy profit margin of 6 figures, but it was a great experience, and one of those cause that you're just like, yes, this is why we, we don't always expect it ever. We don't expect it, but it's one of those that will definitely help us in achieving our goals quicker, right? And
yeah, no, that's amazing. Congratulations, first of all. So
thank you.
About $120,000 purchase, $80,000, renovation, multiple offers, well over $325,000. I would call that a good day at the office for sure.
Yes, for sure.
So you live in Norwich, Illinois, which
Norwich,
is right
correct.
outside of
Yep.
Chicago. So why Austin? How did that come about? Were you targeting it? Was it, give us the backstory there.
So the idea is we were started to target Austin. I do have relatives in Austin, right? And so they know that we started this business, and they just started asking about it. And so this was like maybe in year one, we were talking about it. But, back in August, I was every morning, like I do, I go on the Facebook group for Fortune Builders and just, try to have a pulse on the community and our industry. So I like to read the threads. And one of the mastery students posted there and just said, hey, my sister has this 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Austin, Texas. Is anyone interested? A really simple one-liner. You're just reading it. You're like, oh, I'll contact her and let's see what happens.
Sure.
So I messaged her, and we just, this mastery student is like God sent. She is an angel and the sweetest, funniest, coolest person you'll ever meet. And we just started exchanging information and asking the right questions. I used my seller lead sheet, but it was more of a conversation versus like a very rote thing. And because she was a mastery student, she knew what questions were going to come her way, and so she was ready. So it was one of those, like, it was just like almost like a scripted conversation, but not quite.
Right.
So we started to talk about, we got the comps correct. We got the comps from a realtor. We talked about the rehab. And again, because she was a fellow mastery student, she knew exactly the rehab costs. She's like, hey, this is a hoarding situation. It's also a smoker situation. So you compound that into a property, and you already know you're going to have to go down to the studs, right? The insulation smells like smoke, and there could be mold issues. So she knew right away what our numbers should be. And so we showed her the deal analyzer on a Zoom meeting. We're like, hey, this is what we have. And it was so refreshing to have this like transparent relationship with her, because she knew what the deal analyzer was. I didn't have to export it into a PDF and make it look like, not showing the spreadsheet and whatnot. So anyways, we winded up, that's how we found the deal. We worked with the seller closely, and we made a new friend, and that's how we acquired the property. So.
Oh, that's a great story. I didn't realize, that's how it came to be. And for those of you that, are outside of the Fortune Builders community, just the deal analyzer, lead sheet, repair estimator, these are just tools that, we use, that Fan, Paul, and Conrad have created that we use to evaluate properties. So that's so cool. So this is, you fill out the deal analyzer, you put it right in front of this agent. You guys just went back and forth. Was there a lot of, how'd you do on price from your initial offer to who won the negotiations?
I think we negotiated very well, and so did she, though. I will say the mastery student was great. I will say, though, that I think, like I said, she's an angel. I think she knew, like, we talked about experiences, and I only had 2 under my belt, and she said, I think this is a deal that's gonna do you well. So, she agreed to our terms and whatnot. And so I think the only thing she did state, she's like, well, with your ARV of 285, and she knew the market. She's from Houston, in the Houston area, but she did say, she's like, okay, I'll agree with your purchase price, but if you sell the property for over 285, can you give me $5,000 back? And I said, yes, we can absolutely do that. And so this wasn't written in the contract. This wasn't anywhere except on an email that I made sure we put in writing, just to protect her and protect me, just to be fair.
Yeah.
And just last week I called her and I said, hey, what's your Zelle account? I'm gonna send you some money. And that was the greatest part, fulfilling your own your promises. I mean, that's also what you're supposed to do. So it was
100%.
nice to do that. So
what a great story this is. I'm loving this. So you find it through the Fortune Builders Facebook group. Then you negotiate the deal, and now you're living in Illinois. So now you have to arrange a pretty significant renovation. And anytime you're going down to the studs, I'd call that significant. So what was your process in just vetting and lining up contractors and getting ready to go?
Sure. So the first thing I did, once I knew the address of the property, like I said, I had cousins or relatives that lived in Austin, and they Google mapped it, and they said, hey, we live about 20 minutes away. And I'm like, okay, cool. Can you walk the property? And they're like, yeah, we can at least FaceTime you and we'll walk the property. And so, with that sort of started the conversation of, okay, this looks like a deal that we are going to be able to acquire. And Zach is my cousin, and we had a serious discussion about wanting to be our project manager for this. And without hesitation, he's like, "No, I'm in. I'll do it." I'm like, "Okay, that's great." And so, having family to be able to manage your projects is great because there's already a level of trust there because you're family. But at the same time, I think just because you're family doesn't mean you're a good fit for the team or for the business or for the actual task, the project itself. And so what I made sure that we did with Zach is like, we already had a great personal relationship. And so because I wanted to make sure I mentored him correctly or guided him as best as I can, I did have him fill out an application that was off the Mastery site. I downloaded it and put our logo in and had him apply. And the reason for that is because I was still vetting him to make sure that he was a good fit for the project, right?
Yes.
Because I think we all know we all have that family or friend that we love to hang out with, but I don't know that we necessarily work with. So
definitely.
Right. So he filled out the application, and while I knew what he did as a career, he was, in a family-owned business in the food and entertainment business. I knew that I wanted to know what areas that were his strongest skill sets and also know what parts I should mentor him on. And so the application did help me kind of give me a background of what he's done professionally. And so that's part of like the remote management, right? I think the whole point is not to hire your cousins, but to still make sure that whoever you're going to interview and hire, make sure that they're a good fit for the company. So I still had to properly vet Zach out. Obviously, I just had a head start because I know him personally, I know his strengths. And then another thing is also between the 7 stages of rehabbing, we followed that to the T. Having to find the right contractor is another thing, not just for a project manager, but you're gonna have to find the right contractor. And so I know that there are some contractor lead sheets out there, and we use those that questionnaire to interview our contractors for sure. And so I interviewed some on the side, and I had Zach listen in on some of the conversations, so he knew sort of how to interview the contractors and how the conversation goes, because Zach doesn't have any real estate experience either. And so between him and I just going through the process and interviewing together and talking through the process. This was about, let me see, started in August, we closed in November. So between those months, we were walking through all of these core curriculum and like obviously in that time, but clearly it worked out well for us. And I think that's also because of, again, managing someone who is really good at communication, right? Communicating. Zach is great at that. And so that really helps us be on the same page together. And then also the contractor we hired, hire the correct people for your team. And if they're not, I haven't had to do it yet, but I've had experience with bad contractors. You're going to have to boot them if you have to, because they will cost you money in the long run.
That's right.
But the contractor we ultimately hired, James Johnson from Blue Valor, he's amazing, so honest and full of integrity that he was just such a great fit for us, and completely respects the small business side. And I love that recently he texted me like, "Hey, I'm rooting for the little people. So like, find your success." So I love it. So between the great communication and then all the technology that we have here, right? I mean, we have the Zoom, we have GoToMeeting, we have FaceTime, and with text messaging. Remote managing is a lot easier than we probably even know while we're doing it, right? Because there's so many ways to communicate. And so and that's how we've been managing it remotely. So besides Vero, we already started our second project in Austin as well. So
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you hit some really key points here. Just for those of you listening, is just if you're looking to expand in other states, whoever you talk to, they have to check the boxes, right? Whether it's family or not family. But really, to Jennifer's point, I mean, one of the ways I've been able to expand into multiple markets is I always start with, who do I know that lives in that market, whether it's family or Fortune Builders has a community of over 30,000 students across the country. So I just say, all right, what students, what coaches, do we have in that area? And then start, starting at that place of trust, and then qualifying. And it's amazing how things can fall into place. And then how, with so much of the technology that Jennifer just mentioned, you can manage easily out of state. So I want to get into, before we get into like the process of the renovations and exiting the property, how you chose rehabbing as the exit strategy. But before you answer that, Jennifer, I just want to give the listeners a quick opportunity. As always, as we do every week, guys, if you are interested in learning how to get started in investing in real estate, I'm biased, obviously, but I believe Fortune Builders is the best way to get started in the country. That's where I got started. That's where Jennifer got started. But we run free trainings every week to help people like maybe yourself that are thinking about it but haven't done it, or maybe you're in it, but you're looking to scale and really grow to the next level. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, below the video, you'll see a link, FortuneBuildersShow.com, FortuneBuildersShow.com, and that's a free training with one of our top trainers just to help you get started. So if you're interested in that, take advantage of it. But Jennifer, so rehab that's what you did. I know many times, remote investing, it's tempting to, just wholesale it, to a local investor. You make a little bit less, but a lot less risk, a lot less things that people think can go wrong. But obviously, what made you make that decision, and maybe were you looking at it a different way prior to deciding to rehab it?
Yeah, so when we first purchased the property, it was in November, and we were like, okay, this is clearly something we're going to flip. I think we're going to flip it. Around January, I think I started to think, you know what, Austin is such a great city for a 3-day getaway, 4-day getaway. What is the possibility of us being able to Airbnb this? And so in January, I had emailed the property management company of the condo building and had asked them if there were any restrictions on short-term rentals. And they said in January, no, there are no restrictions. And so for those who are in the Airbnb community or short-term rental community, it's almost like a unicorn to have a short-term rental in a condo that has no restrictions, because there's so many restrictions that come with having a short-term rental. So we decided in February, like, okay, let's not sell it. Let's go ahead and let's go purchase the AirDNA subscription, so we know what our revenue would be like for the zip code. We actually purchased the Austin short-term rental permit, which we still have not received. We actually furnished the property, and we also were in the process of refinancing. And so we were supposed to refinance on May 16th, but clearly we ended up selling this May 25th. So we clearly didn't go the refinancing route or the short-term rental route. And mainly that is because of the property management team. In April, I had a friend ask me if they can use our property just for a week. And they were just like, but we have a dog. Is that going to be okay? I sent another email to the property management company saying, are there any restrictions on pets? They sent me the bylaws. And so I'm reading the bylaws. Okay, cool. Pets less than 50 pounds. All right. And it was only a 4-page document. And so as I'm scrolling, I'm like, you know what? I might as well read this whole thing, which lesson learned, everyone. Make sure you read this before and after, not in the middle of a project. But I actually winded up seeing some restrictions regarding short-term rentals, and so that put a huge halt on our exit strategy. And I wound up emailing the property management team and asking them, like, hey, are there really restrictions? And then now in April, they did say, yes, there are short-term rental restrictions. And so knowing this, we had to shift directions and just say, all right, I think it's time to sell the property, because the short-term rental restrictions were for 30 days or more. And I think the way we had planned it was for the 3 or 4 day increments throughout the weekend. So we didn't plan or I guess plan for 30 days or longer for short-term rentals. So we ultimately had to wind up to do a fix and flip, which worked out in our favor, even with all of the, the subscriptions, the permit purchasing, and even the furnishing. We still winded up making a profit. So that was always that was a good thing. So.
Yeah. Do you by any chance have any like before and after pictures, anything you could pull up just to kind of, bring the deal to life a little bit for the viewers? I think that'd be cool.
1 second here. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, we could just talk about, selling the property and just what that process was like. Wow, look at that.
Yeah. So, this is the before pictures. I hope I have the after ones, but we could see it was definitely a hoarding situation, as as the seller had stated. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So
So anything, so this was brought to you by another mastery student, and you said it was a family member's home of hers?
it was her sister's home.
It,
Yeah. And
it
like
was
I
her
said,
sister.
yep. The seller
Okay.
is just such an angel. She's like, hey, my sister's living with me. I want to sell it for her. Let's move on. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's totally fine. And so she's a wonderful human being. So yeah.
Popcorn ceilings. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this is
So this was all the before. I think we got a good picture of it. I think that's the living room from the back patio, back porch looking in. So, yeah.
wow. Wow. Yeah, it looks like there's a living room underneath all that junk
Yeah,
somewhere.
there is somewhere. So,
Did you buy the property as is, make it easy for the seller where they didn't have to clear
yes.
all that stuff out?
Yep, we did buy it as is. We didn't want to put any more burden on the seller, to be honest. We just wanted to get them out of their situation. And so as fast as we can for them. So yeah, so those were the before pictures. Should I jump into the
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it.
well, that's the exterior.
Okay.
Yeah, the exterior is like managed by the property management company. So those are always okay, right? So here's that kitchen.
How beautiful.
Yeah, so again, our contractor was wonderful to work with as well. We got really lucky with our contractor as well. Where are these good interior pictures? Hold on. Sorry about that. There you go. Okay, here's the living room now. Nice and open.
Perfect.
And that's the kitchen. Love the kitchen. I love the backsplash tile we used, and we tied it into the fireplace. So that was always a nice touch. And we used the same backsplash in the bathrooms as well, in the bathtubs.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Tied it in with the hardware on the cabinets, and yeah, very, very great design.
Yeah, thank you. It was this was like really happy with the outcome. And so like what we do now is with our next project, we're actually using the almost same color scheme, same flooring, everything is going to be the same. So so kitchen obviously is one of the biggest highlights for any property. So hopefully I'm not going too fast, and you guys are able to get these screenshots. So
no, this is great. I love what you just said too. I mean, when you find a package, that works, the scope of work that works, that you tweak it, you dial it in, then it's rinse and repeat, right? It's just rinse and repeat. Same materials, same colors, on the next one, and until they become out of style, and then we switch to something else.
Yep. Yeah.
Easy peasy. No, and incredible job. It looks beautiful. So tell me, Jennifer, did you end up listing the property with a real estate agent? Did you
Yes.
market it privately? What was your exit strategy there?
I think we definitely want to make sure we use a realtor just so that we can use all avenues of marketing. And had no problem. And actually the realtor wound up being also my cousin's friend as well. So it always helps, like you said, when we know people, it's just a good level of trust. And so
that's right.
She was able to get that listed quickly, and she was helping us run comps the whole time. So definitely wanted to use her as our realtor to make sure that we can get this project to the finish line.
A couple more questions for you is what learning lessons, so was this your first rehab that you did remotely? I know you had done 3 others. Were they
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Remotely. Yep.
So this was remotely. So you landed a great contractor, you had a great team, that you're able to put together fairly quickly. Anything you would do differently next time, or anything that you learned that, okay, that I need to tweak this for the next time I take on a remote project?
Oh man, from a remote perspective, I think it's odd. You have the same issues that you'll have if you're working here. If you're working locally. I have to admit, like, this is one of those where I feel like I hit the jackpot, not literally or literally, but yes, literally, but also figuratively, in terms of the team really just made it easier. So like the lessons more of are when working remotely, but it was more working with a condo association and a property management company, right? Those are the bigger lessons I learned. So I think remotely, I don't know that there were any other lessons learned I could really say that would affect it or
Okay.
change anything. So like I did travel to Austin twice just to look at the property and make sure we're on the same page. I did make sure I meet with my contractor before he really got into the nitty gritty of the work to just make sure we know we have a good relationship and walk through what we were going to do. So I would think that's the one thing, if you're working remotely and you're able to walk the property with the contractor, go to do that. And if you can't get there, it's okay. Use FaceTime. Have him hold up the phone and walk through the property so you can talk extra and whatnot. So, and I will say this, as cheesy as it might sound, like, you know, we really didn't leave room for error for our contractors because we put a lot of work into the scope of work document. And I will say my contractor had the biggest compliment. He said, this is one of the best documents I've ever worked with when working with an investor. So, you know, that's a kudos to Fortune Builders and then to our team to putting the work there that you guys gave us that tool. So that helped us also sort of communicate remotely what we were expecting for each room and for each change. So
yeah, that's fantastic. You know, one of the things I love about remote investing is it kind of protects me from myself. Where I remember, what I mean by that is I remember when I was, you know, renovating in my own backyard when I was living in Connecticut, and every day I would just find a reason to go visit the property and walk through the property and just waste so much time at the property. It's almost like when it's in a different state, it just you're not going to do that. Maybe you fly out once, maybe,
right.
you know, maybe twice, but it's really, you know, just that's exactly how I do it. Weekly meetings, Zoom meetings with the contractor.
Yep.
And you know, we operate, I'm sure you did, off of our payment schedule, right, where you're seeing visual evidence of the work complete and then you're cutting the check, you know, things along those lines. So what was your meeting rhythm with the contractor and payment schedule, etc.?
Yeah, good point, good call. So once I hired Zach to be our project manager, we started meeting on Mondays at 8 a.m. Every Monday we're meeting just to talk about what the week's expectations are and how to execute them. And then with our contractor, I'm actually kind of hands off. I let Zach do a lot of the communicating with the contractor unless it's something has to get escalated. Like if we're behind schedule, you know, I talk to the contractor directly just to see if there's anything we can have in terms of brainstorming ideas because of experience. So that's probably the only time I get involved, but it's not even like an escalation. It's just like, hey, I know you need to get paid. So when can you get this done? And then I can cut you the check and then it'll get into your account, right? So so the contractor I don't have to meet weekly with, and it's all with just meeting with Zach. And we text a lot through, obviously we text a lot about what the updates are and if any decisions need to be made on an ad hoc basis. So, you know, it's a lot of trust. So normally, I think if anyone knew my personality, they'd probably think like as a type A that I'm always like asking him, what's the detail, what's up, what's the update, what is it? But you know, when it's a project like this, you have to trust your team. Otherwise, like you said, you're going to go crazy and wasting time and research where you don't have the time. I think that's another thing you had asked earlier, like, hey, you know, how can you make time? It's like, well, you have to trust those who've already done it or who's doing the job and let them do their job so you have the time to do other things. So it's definitely a trust thing. So but to fully answer your question on the biggest learning lessons, there's one saying that we have now is don't cut the coax cable.
Don't cut the coax cable.
Yeah, so when they were rehabbing it, Zach and our GC saw the coax cable and they're like, we don't think we need this, and they cut the coax cable. And so when we were trying to set the place up for Airbnb, it's pretty difficult to get the coax cable back there. So it's something we now learn, don't cut the coax cable. But to get serious, when you're working with a condo and asking a property management company when they're citing their resources and when they're answering a question that could make or break your timeline, ask them to cite their resources. It's a big deal. You know, that if they're telling me that there are no restrictions and then, you know, 2 months later, they're telling me that there are, that's clearly miscommunication, and really it did cost me some money ultimately. And so, you know, ask people, where are you getting your sources, so that I could just better understand where you're coming from so that I know what my next decision is going to be. That is a huge lesson. And the one thing I really wanted to say is, like, use your resources. So when we were selling the property, the sellers or buyer's agents started to call the property management team and asking if the property was a warrantable condo. And they were telling them that that the property was not a warrantable condo. And for those that don't know, like, lenders will not fund for a property if the property is not warrantable. At least most lenders won't. And so, they're telling me they're not. And so, of course, all of those 10 offers I received, they're going to go out the door if it's not warrantable. And because the property management team was just not answering my questions, I literally felt like I was in a room where there were no doors, but I know there's an exit there. And so, I had to think, how did I get to this point? What got me the property in the first place? And thankfully, I do have a great relationship with my lenders. And so I texted him right away, and I just said, hey, can you send me the documents you have that prove that my property is a warrantable condo? And sure enough, he sent it to me within half an hour, and I was able to remedy and tame that fire, that forest fire that could have been our deal, right? And so
Yes,
that was a big deal. So please use your resources. Just take the time to think. I had to go on a drive, and that's just how I came up with my solution. So
there you go.
use your resources, and yeah, that's how I got there. So.
Oh, I love it. Well, we're so proud of you, Than Paul. They highlighted you actually this week in front of the whole company. Here in San Diego, just the deal that you did. And I want to get you out of here, Jennifer, just with this final question. And it's a question I ask, every podcast guest that comes on, and it's how do you overcome fear in business and in your personal life? Just because, I mean, what you did is it's most people wouldn't take the risk that you took. I mean, first of all, trying to transition from a very comfortable, career, and taking on real estate investing, and then just on your third deal, ever, actually, doing it in another part of the country remotely. So there had to be some fear involved. There had to be some, some of that going through your mind. So how did you overcome it, and what advice would you give to anybody that's just, fear is limiting them in any area of their lives?
For sure. From the business perspective, I think it's literally taking just one step and one task at a time. You will get to your goal. You just literally have to take a step. And how you do that, it's just a mindset change. At some point, you're just going to have to tell yourself, take a breath. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to purchase this property. And but because I did that, because I did my due diligence before then, that's how you get over the fear, right? There's a lot of they say, analysis or paralysis by analysis, right? But if you're analyzing, and if you're doing it right, you have hard data in front of you, and that's how we got over the fear for purchasing a property remotely, right? We did a lot of due diligence. Keep in mind, we spoke to the seller on August, and we didn't close until November. That's how much work and time we did take, and thankfully the seller was very understanding. But it's just one step at a time, one task at a time. And also, like, for me, there's a saying that I think people use, is that nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And so if I didn't change anything, I'd still be happy. I was very happy and, like, comfortable in my current career. But I do know that there are different ways to spend your time. Right. There's also different ways to save your money, and there's different ways to invest. So, I still have my retirement fund. I still have my 401k, but at the same time, I'm also making sure that I have my own type of revenue that I can generate for myself and for my family, and try to have more time. And so when you think about what your real wants are, and then almost everything you do after that is because of that, I think you'll start to make decisions based on that and start to work towards your goals. So that's how I got over it. And a lot of conversations with other entrepreneurs helps too. So, and speaking,
I love it.
You, so.
I love it. No, that's great advice. And again, I appreciate you so much just for jumping on here last minute. I just know this is going to inspire and help a lot of people, and just wish you continued success, in your investing career. And excited just to see more deals, come across our desk, that's so we could talk about it more. But and also, I just want to thank everyone that tuned in today. As always, we just appreciate you guys listening and tuning in, and just always ask to share this with somebody that needs help financially. We believe that real estate is the greatest way in the United States of America to create wealth. That's really not just our opinion, that's statistics. More wealth has been created in our country, in the asset class of real estate than anything else. So we just want to get that message out to more and more people, especially with everything going on in our country and inflation and everything. Real estate is the greatest hedge against inflation as well. And that's one of your goals too, Jennifer, is to start picking up some rental properties, right? That's the next phase for you, right?
Yep, absolutely. Hopefully, by the end of this year, we should have at least one passive income property. So.
All right. Well, when you get it, call us and we'll bring you back on the show so we can talk about that. But thanks again, Jennifer. Thanks again, everyone else. See you next week on the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show. Take care.
Thank you.